Welcome to Unfiltered Summit Sisters.
I'm Gina.
And I'm Julia.
We are two ride-or-die best friends who are paving the path for what true, authentic relationships look like.
We're facing hardships head-on, having real, uncensored conversations, supporting each other's growth, and shining a light on true, raw healing.
We are navigating the world the best we know how.
Having a hell of a time doing it.
Laughing every step of the way.
Through the rain
and sunshine.
This is Canyon Culture.
Welcome back. On today's episode, Gina is going to share a little bit of her story with us. I'm so excited to have you share your story and what has made you the incredible woman and mom and friend that you are today. So without further ado, Gina.
Okay. I always have a hard time knowing where to start.
Mm-hmm.
But I was inspired by what you shared in your episode, because I do think a little bit of what it was like as a child kind of makes sense as to why we landed where we landed. So for me, growing up, I did have two really great parents. Love them. They are awesome. But I had a lot of self-esteem issues, and it sounds so trivial, but it's interesting how I'm a codependent, and so I rely on how other people are feeling. I rely on their opinions of me to validate who I am instead of relying on myself and God's opinion.
You used to.
I'm working on it.
You've been doing a damn good job working on it.
Thank you. It's a lot of work, and It's not perfect, but we are trying. But it's interesting how even with two great parents who are doing their best, just the way that family dynamics, being a middle child, the way just how life was, no one made any mistakes, but no one's perfect.
Right.
I still grew up this codependent, and codependence and narcissists are little magnets for each other. So it's really actually funny because I'm kind of doing a deep dive into after high school, before I got married time, reading letters, journals, and it's been really fun. And there's just a lot of these really great boys who are in my life, and I'm like, they're so great, and that I still ended up with a narcissist. And I'm like, what happened? But as I'm learning about codependency and I'm learning about myself and how they're magnets, I'm like, no, I get it. I'm not happy about it, but it takes the guilt away, because I read those letters, or I'm like, why did I not end up with these great boys who were so kind to me and would have been a lot better of an option? I can't blame myself. I was emotionally injured, I guess is a great way to do it.
Okay.
Describe it. Anyway, so I met my ex-husband when I was young. I was, I think, 16 or 17, and then a couple years later kind of ran back into each other when I was 18 or 19. And we just kind of started dating, and a lot like your story, there's going to be a lot of repetition, a lot of love bombing, a lot of flattery, an immense amount of flattery. With our religion, boys go on missions, and that is held with high regard. And he was a missionary. That's where I met him. And so for him to like me was like, oh my gosh, this super spiritual boy likes me. And there wasn't enough time for the red flags to come out for us.
Okay.
It was really fast. So fast. I'm trying to think. I want to say our first date was the beginning of April, and we were married by July. So fast that there wasn't a chance for the red flags other than the speed of it. Now I'm older, I know a little bit better.
Right.
But anyway, I remember the day of our wedding was our first argument. And went downhill real fast after that. Again, a lot of the same things, addiction issues that came up real quick, a lot of anger and violent issues. And just as the years went on, it got worse and worse and worse. And a lot like you, I took my vows really, really seriously. There's a lot of religion in that, and a lot of just, this is eternity. You don't give up.
Yeah.
But I learned now how much you both have to have that for it to work. One side having that much or having dedication and the other side not doesn't work.
Yeah.
So I too kept things pretty, definitely not as close as you did. Part of the reason is because when we were first married, my sister and her husband lived upstairs in a duplex. And so they literally were hearing these issues. And so I had people early on telling me to leave, saying this is not healthy. And I had a support system that was like, this isn't good. And I didn't listen. And that's the part where that's where I think a lot of what I want to share with women now is having somebody having gone through it, knowing that you hear, like, you got to get out of these, got to get out, isn't enough. And I'm hoping that hearing from someone who has been through it and saying, you don't deserve to be treated like this, they're not going to change. Narcissism is not something you can fix or counsel away, therapy away.
Right.
They are not going to change. They're going to do a lot what you talked about in your episode with the cycles. And the cycles are going to get bigger and they're going to get more intense. And so as I also was married for 13 years. And so as those years went on and the abuse in every sense of the word got worse and worse and worse, bigger and bigger and bigger, I too believed the lies that he told me, that the adversary told me. And then I took my covenants so intensely and I didn't know or recognize that when the abuse started, that our vows were done. They no longer applied anymore. But I didn't want to give up. And a lot of my insecurities had a big factor in that. So when he told me that, no one would love me as much as he did, or that I am nothing without him, or that if I left him, I'd be alone forever. But I think the most important thing is that kept me around was I was more afraid of the unknown of not being in that abusive relationship than it was being in the abusive relationship. I had learned to cope. I had learned to manage. I had learned to protect. We talked in your episode about being in fight or flight the majority of our marriage. And my body still responds that way. I constantly have to remember to lower my shoulders, to unclench my jaw, to unclench my hands. I still am hyper aware of my surroundings. I had to read into every eye roll. I had to read into every sigh. I had to read into the footsteps coming up the stairs so I knew how to respond. And I didn't understand that until I was away from it. But that's how I lived my everyday life. I didn't know what version of this man was going to come upstairs. And I had to be prepared to protect me and my kids. And that sometimes the protection was physical and sometimes it was just redirecting him. So I learned a lot of skills on how to just be aware. But I was living in a state of fight or flight all the time.
That's exhausting.
It really is. It really, really is. And I feel that right now I went from living, in a space of not feeling safe because my partner was dangerous to now being the one, if anything happened in my house, I'm the front line.
Right.
I'm just like, that's exhausting too.
It is.
And I'm really, trying to figure out my place here and feel safe. But anyway, that's besides the point. So yeah, this relationship took me down some dark places. I look at pictures. I don't know where we heard this, but somebody was like, take a picture before, look at the pictures before you left and look at the pictures now. And there is just these empty smiles everywhere, even with my kids, empty smiles. And now there's just this not empty smiles. It's so fun to look at the two different pictures.
There's just light and joy and just the authentic Gina shining through. And it's crazy to see it in picture form.
It's crazy how different that is. Yeah. Like it's like facts. Like I feel that, but it's facts. But yeah, so that went on for 13 years and, me leaving was a little bit different. We had been separated for, 6 months at one point.
I like how you say that went on for 13 years, just 13 years.
Right.
That's a long time.
It is a long time.
That's a long time. Okay.
And but it's the kind of thing though, I'm learning to be grateful for those 13 years because I needed to be the version of Gina that I was when I left, because I probably would have gone back
Right.
if I had left any earlier. In fact, I did. That's what I was saying. We separated before we had kids. We separated for 6 months and I went back. And part of it was some addiction with video games. And I said, I'm not coming back until you quit video games. And he said, okay, I'll quit. And he was living down in Texas doing summer sales for security. And I surprised him when I showed up a day early. And I opened the door and he's playing video games. And I didn't turn around and leave. That wasn't a version, like I just stayed. You know what I mean? So it's like I needed more.
Right.
So as much as 13 years, you've got to be kidding me. I for whatever, I needed it because I also have 4 kids and I need to be strong for them, and I needed enough relationship with God. I needed enough courage to leave and stay left, because the statistics of women in abusive relationships going back is really, really high.
It is.
And I'm so grateful for that. So I'm learning to be grateful for the journey, even though it's painful to think about how much I didn't love myself. And that's part of this learning to love myself that's really hard, is because I think about how I let him treat me and how much I treated me so poorly. Back then, it's really heartbreaking. Because that's what it equates to me, is that you stayed for 13 years because you didn't love yourself enough. Because it wasn't little things. Again, like I said, we're really mirroring our relationship so much. I should have called the police more. I should have gone to the hospital more. I should have filed for, I should have filed for anything.
Yeah.
Made reports, that's what it is. And so when it was time to leave, mine was really, the decision to leave was a lot faster than yours, but it took a year. So we had an altercation where he had lied to the police and I told the truth and they believed him. And I was charged with, I don't even remember, I don't even know. I don't know the legal terms, but I was the one charged. And the only reason I was not arrested is because I was breastfeeding a child at the time, because he lied.
Yeah.
The lawyer that I had at the time told me not to read the police reports. It just makes you more upset. And so I didn't read that until later when I was getting divorced. I did read it and I was like, oh, he lied.
Wow.
Now I totally get why I was being arrested or I got charged, because he flat out lied. Why they didn't believe the marks on my body, I don't know.
Yeah, and wasn't your shirt ripped too?
My shirt was ripped and there was marks on my body, yeah. So I got charged, and so I was on probation for a year, and I needed to have no more domestic issues for that year while I'm on probation to get my plea in abeyance. And that was my first experience with the system being broken, because the amount of abuse that happened in that year was why I didn't go to the hospital when I should have,
Right.
which is why I didn't leave until literally the second the judge signed that my probation was over.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there was our preparation. Well, let me back up just a tiny bit. We had an altercation on Christmas Day that my parents witnessed. My brother came into town a few days later to celebrate. And I just told him, I was like, oh, my husband and I are not doing well, so he's not going to be around for stuff. So don't be surprised if he's not there. And he asked very little questions and was very dramatic about it. And thankfully he was.
Yeah.
So he got other people involved in my family, and they ended up having almost like a intervention in my grandpa's basement.
Okay.
And they just said, are you ready to leave? And I had said for years, I want to leave. I need to go. Yeah, it's bad. I should leave. But this was like a really intense situation, right? With like an intervention kind of a thing. And I just said yes. And they all had binders with notes and they're ready to go. Everyone had a job.
Yeah.
Everyone had a plan. But we had to wait till my probation was over.
Right.
Which feels ridiculous.
It is.
That I had to continue to be in an abusive relationship because he lied.
Yeah.
So for the next couple of weeks, we prepared as well. Opened new bank accounts, figured out how to, my doTERRA money that I was making, figured out how to get that into my bank account and not our joint account. I started to take things out of the house, and I remember how terrifying it was to just, I'm just talking about like our go bags. Like we also had go bags and just things that we would need when we left. How do I get this out without him noticing? And if he catches me, what lie am I going to tell?
Right.
I'm not a liar. Living that life was really hard for me. That 2 weeks of making up reasons to go to a meeting that I didn't have so that I could meet with a counselor so that we could find a safe plan, get a safe plan together, how to leave, meeting with my church leaders to let them know what was going on, getting everything we needed to so that I could leave and it be that done was really, really intense. And in those 2 weeks, we were preparing a protective order, which means I was digging through all of my records. And the fact that I had records is ridiculous.
Well, and that, just pause for a second there. You're reliving all of those experiences.
And having to remember as much of it as I can.
And it is, and they want gruesome detail. They want every tiny detail that you can remember. And that is incredibly hard.
It was not fun.
Yeah.
So I'm lying, sneaking out of my house, right? Having to leave my children with this man while I am building a case about why he's unsafe. And so I did that for 2 weeks, which isn't a lot of time, but it was miserable.
But you put a whole lot into that 2 weeks.
It was a full-time job.
Yeah.
So the day came, and it was a glorious day. That is my freedom day.
Yeah.
That is the day that I gained my freedom back. And God was in every step of that day. And my dad and my sister were with me every minute. And they were so inspired because I was numb.
Yeah.
My head was spinning and I was just in shock still that we were doing this, I'm leaving my husband.
It all happened so fast on that day for you.
It did. So we had to wait for the judge to sign that my probation was over. And we called kind of early in the morning. And the secretary said, "Oh, she just signed it." And we're like, "Are you kidding me?" Amazing.
Yeah.
It's go time. Let's go. I'm done. So we had to take the protective order documents down to the courthouse, which is a half an hour away. We came back up and just started packing as much stuff in the house as we can. I didn't care about stuff. I'm a sentimental person, and he used that against me, so I already didn't have anything that I cared about. Things were destroyed. So literally like my baby carriers and my cloth diapers, like these were the sentimental things to me at that moment. So we're just gathering clothes, as much clothes, because I had no idea if we'd ever come back to that house again. At that time, I had kids in school, so some were at school, and I had to go to a neighbor who had no idea. I knocked on her door. I was like, "I'm leaving my husband. Can you watch my kids while I pack my house?" She knew nothing. That was a little intense. At one point, my dad's like, "Let's call the courthouse and just see where they're at with the protective order." Now, this was on a Friday, and it was Martin Luther King weekend, which means
Long weekend.
We were not anticipating hearing back until Tuesday at the earliest. We call. And my sister's on the phone and she starts crying and she said, "It's signed." My dad said, "Go get it now because we have to go have it in hand." We run down there. We get the paperwork. I don't remember this, but I think you shared a memory of my sister sharing a picture. My mom has a memory of sharing a picture of us having the paperwork, and we're just like all like giddy and excited about it. But like it took hours for them to sign this protective order. So we get back up to my house, and we're packing, and we've got the kids out of school, and we're over at my parents' house. And the rest of the evening was really intense. There's police involved. He tried to take the kids, and like he found out where we were. We weren't hiding. But it didn't go down peacefully, which I'm oddly grateful for. But this is what was really interesting is that with that protective order, when you apply for a protective order, you can ask for whatever you want. And the judge decides what they give you. That judge gave us everything we asked for. And that the police officer was like, I've never seen a protective order like this before. We had so many people on that protective order where he can't be around them. We had the distance was the max distance he could have to be around us. Like we literally got everything, which was amazing.
Yeah.
And in fact, that officer was there for my altercation the year before. And he's like, I remember you.
Just all these little God moments.
And he shared a book that he thought I should read about abuse. So that would have been great last year. But anyway, I'm oddly grateful that it went down kind of dramatically, because as we left, and my little tiny babies are so confused. Why things were so dramatic, why the police were there, what was going on. And I was like, the way that Daddy just treated us is not how you treat the people you love. And that's why we're leaving, because that's not okay. But just like, even though God was with us every step of the way, it was an intense day.
Yeah.
But it was my freedom day. And I am so grateful for the people who helped me do that, because I could not have done that on my own. I was not brave enough. I was not strong enough to do that on my own.
He gave you exactly what you needed.
In my support system.
You did it through his strength.
Yeah. We spent the next 2 weeks in a safe house. There's lovely statistic that says that homicide after leaving a narcissist, the likelihood of there being homicide after leaving a narcissist happens within the first 7 days.
Yeah.
So we were in a safe house for 2 weeks. The kids weren't in school. Nobody knew where we were except for my parents.
I remember because everybody wanted to ensure that y'all were completely safe, and so I didn't know where you were. You and I didn't communicate at all. I talked to your sister, but that was it.
Yeah. And I was in a blur, like I was still in a phase, like a haze, and I don't have a ton of memories, but I also remember I didn't have to make choices. Like my family just knew, like she needs to, like we're in survival mode like I've never been in before in my life. But we got the house in the protective order, so me and the kids got to move back into the house, and there's just more blessings, and the community of people in my neighborhood are incredible. They're going to get sick of hearing of how great our neighborhood is, or everyone's going to try and live in our neighborhood. And there's very few people, there'd been enough times where police showed up at our house during our marriage so that people knew that things weren't great for us.
That's fun.
It's super great. But what that did do is that after, several months, when he was able to come see the kids again, when he showed up, I remember that day. When he showed up, he was at the curb. We had a conversation, and then he was able to take the kids for a couple hours. And the amount of knocks on my door and text messages I got, they said, is everything okay? I felt so seen and so loved and so protected by these people in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And this neighborhood has continued to hold us and care for us since then. So yeah, that was really dark and hard. But because of all of that, I so appreciate the light that we have now.
Yeah.
That I fight for, that I strive for, that I work for. And I was just praying to God the other day how grateful I am, because Gina as a little girl was so bright and shiny and playful and happy and bouncy. And she was gone for a really, really long time. And I get to be her again. I get to be the woman that he designed me to be, that he created. And that feels incredible. I get to be my authentic me. I haven't been that for a long time.
And I think it's incredible that neighbors are commenting on that. Your community is saying things.
Because they never saw that.
Yeah.
Because we've been in the same house since Russell was a baby. So it's been almost 12 years and they've never seen that. So to be called shiny, to be called bright is the best compliment ever.
Yeah.
Because I feel that. I feel it. And I think you guys moving here has taken it a step further. And as much as I hate that I had to go through those 13 years, I am so grateful for the woman I am on this side of it, and that my kids get to see a healthy and happy mom.
Yeah.
The relationships I have with my kids are everything I've ever dreamed.
Mm.
I'm not a career-driven woman. I wanted to be a mom since I was young.
Yeah.
And the fact that your teenagers and my almost teenager want to spend time with me is my biggest dream. I go on walks every day, and I'm rarely alone because these teenagers like, let's hang out.
Yeah.
And we've got these teenage boys who are wanting to hang out at our house, and these other neighborhood kids who want to hang out with us. And I'm just like, I couldn't have done this in that marriage.
Right.
And so we talk about having a second chance at life. And I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful to have gone and fought through all of that, because now I just appreciate it so much more, and I love where we are.
Yeah.
Again, when I was talking to God this morning, I apologize, because I've been saying the last couple of weeks that this is not the life that anybody's seeking to desire. Single parenthood is not like, I want that life.
Let's sign up for that.
But I think by saying that, I'm not giving myself the space to absolutely love my life. And I was feeling that a lot this morning. I was like, I adore my life.
Yeah.
It is so good. So good.
Yeah.
And I love that every Saturday morning I get to make pancakes for all these people that I love. I don't know. I just am living this dream right now.
Yeah.
And that doesn't take away the hard. It doesn't take the difficulties that I'm dealing with my kids. It doesn't take away the tears. But that means that the load is a little bit lighter, and in between the moments of hard is just absolute bliss. And then when it's hard, there's not this, we're not going to make it out. There's
Right,
how are we going to make it out?
Right. It's
And
different.
Yeah.
And those moments of bliss are so much sweeter.
Oh my gosh. They're so yummy.
Yeah.
Like, they're just the best.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that we're getting to do this together now, because who wouldn't want to do life with their best friend? But yeah, I like that you ended with just gratitude towards the people that helped you. Because like I said, I could not have done this without my sister.
Yeah.
And my dad and my family supporting me. I could not have done this without your prayers and your distant support. I love that we both play such a really large role in each other's success stories.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful for my kids who just have so much love, because I need that a lot, you know? It's lonely being a single parent.
Yeah.
And they just have always so much love. Your kids too. When I say my kids, by the way, I say your kids.
We mean all 10 of them.
All 10 of them. And then the neighborhood ones too.
Yeah.
But I'm just so grateful that I get to live in light again. Because the last time I remember feeling that, I was 5. And I'm just so grateful that I get to live in light, and I get to feel happiness on this level. And our stories aren't done yet, which means that we get to feel even more.
There's still more good coming.
I'm so excited.
I love that. Thank you for being vulnerable and for sharing your story with us. I am just so freaking proud of you. I am so thankful for you. I hate what you've had to walk through. I hate it, and it breaks my heart. But I couldn't do this life without you. And there is no better woman for my kids to look up to.
Wow.
And to know that you walked through a lot of hard, and to see you come out, the example that you're setting for all of our babies. Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to leave, for being brave enough to walk through everything that you've walked through, because it is going to benefit all of our babies. And selfishly, it benefits me all the time.
Our kids are the luckiest kids on the planet having us as moms. Oh my gosh, that was really beautiful. Thank you.
Love you.
I love you. Should we end with gratitude?
Sure.
Okay. I'm really grateful that there are going to be warm days soon, because I'm really cold.
My toes are frozen.
So cold. But I'm really excited to do this when we're not freezing.
Yeah.
In like leggings and tank tops. I'm grateful. I'm like, this is more gratitude / manifesting.
I love that.
Okay, I needed to bring laughter. Sorry, go ahead.
I love that so much. I am really grateful for my heated blanket that you got me for Christmas.
Can I change mine to my heated mattress pad that you got me for Christmas?
Can you tell that we're cold? That heated blanket is one of my favoriteest things ever.
You got me a heated mattress pad for Christmas. It's in my gratitude journal. Like, I had to be like, listen, eternally, we're just gonna have it here.
So it's on my heated blanket is on my bed, except for when I work, then I take it with me to my office.
So we need to get you two, is what you're saying. We need to get you a heated mattress pad cover like you got me, and then the blanket can stay in there.
And then we need like a battery operated one to bring out here.
Or we just go with summer. But
Okay,
a
let's
battery.
do that.
We go for that.